the Horizon Arctic has found a debris field near the wreckage of the Titanic, a debris field that we're going to find out more about at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. The U.S. Coast Guard calling a press conference, then we're going to find out more about this debris field that has been found, but certainly news that has spread through the internet because, of course, people have been waiting for any kind of an update now that additional specialized equipment has made its way to the North Atlantic, to the site of the RMS Titanic, and where the Titanic expedition sub, the Titan Submersible, went missing on Sunday. JB here with you live again here, folks, on WFLA Now. Hopefully our audio issues are fixed. We have had problems due to the high volume of stream viewership, as it's been told to me, a lot of encoding issues, but hopefully hopefully the audio has been dramatically improved. What we're going to do is we're going to bring this tweet back up on screen and show you. This is according to USCG Northeast. That is the U.S. Coast Guard Northeast that has really been leading the way as far as the search and rescue effort, an effort that might now be search and recovery based on what we're going to find out at 3 o'clock Eastern Time from the U.S. Coast Guard location in Boston. Let's bring back in Mark Martin. Mark, his phone's been blowing up. Mark, a retired U.S. Navy submariner, and Mark, you were talking about how this community of underwater explorers, it is not an enormous circle. It's a small circle of people who all know one another. What do you think the reaction is to this tweet so far this afternoon?
I don't have to think. I know, because while you were resetting, I texted with 3 people and spoke with 1. So it is, pardon me, on a positive note, we have found at least part of it. So finding the rest of it hopefully will not take too much longer, and we'll have a resolution.
And Mark, you have to forgive me. My job is to work in specifics. You're saying that you have spoke to somebody who says the piece has been found. Is that correct? One of your sources?
No. What we're doing is part of the small group. We've all seen this.
Seen what? Seen what exactly? Seen this news?
The tweet that we're looking at on the screen right now.
Yep.
And we have all come to, pretty much a general consensus that the Coast Guard would not have put this out if they weren't pretty darn sure that it was a piece of the Titan. So now we just have to see, what it is. We'll find that out. We're not going to find anything out, I think, until 3 o'clock. There's at least a couple dozen people that are experts in the field that are going over the video that was sent back from the ROV to try and identify if this is a piece of the Titan and if it is a piece, what piece is it? And again, as I spoke earlier, if they decide that it's a thruster, then there's still a chance we'll find an intact hull. But again, my gut feeling is that this is a sure sign of an implosion, because the vehicle just didn't have that many external components.
Let me make something clear. We know that this particular live stream, because we are broadcasting to multiple social media platforms, WFLA.com, the WFLA app, and because we know that it's free to consume, it's free to watch, and free to listen, we know that this live stream has reached a lot of people around the world, and some people who are Googling or searching for live, ongoing, continuous coverage might have found our live stream. And when I say people, I mean sometimes it might be people that are directly connected to one of the 5 people that are on board that set forth on this expedition, set forth on this journey on the Titan Submersible. And I just want to take a second to say, with as much sensitivity as I can, that we're passing along thoughts and prayers. And while this is not a death notice, this is not confirming 5 fatalities, and we are, of course, evaluating this news on a surface level based on what this tweet tells us. Doesn't tell us anything more than what you're seeing as far as the words on your screen. We just want to let you know that we're treating this situation with sensitivity and passing along our thoughts and prayers for the families and loved ones of the 5 team members that were on board.
The tweet states, from the USGS Northeast Coast Guard, a debris field was discovered within the search area by an ROV near the Titanic. Experts within the Unified Command are evaluating the information. There's going to be a press conference at 3 p.m. Eastern Time.
Those 2 vessels in particular might really have the specialized resources necessary to evaluate this area of the ocean and to evaluate the 2.5 miles down near the RMS Titanic. And so much was made of it. And my goodness, if it had been 5 days of air, Mark, people are going to wonder this if they had gotten there sooner. But based on your assessment of this, we've been making so much of this over the last day and a half of how it's a race against the clock. Was it never a race against the clock? If it was an implosion, that just means that all these resources, they got there as quickly as they could, but that it wasn't necessarily that the clock was ticking.
If it was an implosion, then it was never a race against the clock, because they all would have perished instantly.
There's no scenario where this implosion could have occurred in the last 48 hours.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there is. Because
based on, and I want to make sure that our audience is following what I'm saying. So the descent on Sunday is 1 hour and 45 minutes in. They're somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles down, based on that progress, based on that sequence of time. And then they all of a sudden the surface loses contact with the Titan sub. And I guess what I am trying to get at here is that, of course, by now we've evaluated this and been on stream talking about this. There is the chance that the reason that contact ceased at that moment was because of an implosion. But I guess what I am asking you, is there a chance that comms were lost, and then in the subsequent hours or days, the following hours or days, all of a sudden, because of compromising or complex situations at the depths of the ocean, then there was an implosion?
Absolutely.
And what would cause
that? Part of the reason that I think that is, again, it's an unconfirmed report that there was a message sent before they lost comms that they were trying to drop ballast, which indicates that the vehicle was heavy and descending quicker than anticipated. So maybe they lost the thruster. Maybe they lost both thrusters, and now they couldn't control their descent. So they're dumping ballast to make themselves lighter and come to the surface. If that's the case, and they actually impact the seabed with the hull intact, if you free fall, okay, so let's say they were 2,000 meters down or 2,500 meters, you're going to almost 4,000. So there's another 1,500 meters of free fall. When you impact the seabed, it's like running into a light pole, right? You're in your car, you're only doing maybe 20 or 30 miles an hour, but you run into a light pole, maybe you're only doing 10 miles an hour. You run into a light pole or a concrete barricade, there's still going to be some fairly substantial damage to your vehicle.
So what
they're
you're
going to sustain some damage, and maybe that weakened the hull just enough that it didn't implode immediately. But you've got to remember, while they're sitting on the bottom, they've still got all of that sea pressure pressing on the hull. And if there's a weak point, at some point, that weak point is going to give, and then you would have an implosion. So there is. Do I think that's probably what happened? I don't know. There's not enough information to any. I don't want to wildly speculate, because then I become one of the people that I'm trying to not be.
This is why we've had you on stream for hours, by the way, is because you're not wildly speculating, and we appreciate that, and that you're not going off on wild tangents. But I want to kind of convert and translate a bit of what you're saying so that I best understand it and our audience best understand it. What you are trying to describe is there is a scenario at play where during the descent downward, as the Titan sub is moving downward, that the hull was compromised and never made it to the bottom because of an implosion, and then debris, again, in theory, would fall to the bottom. Or what you were also saying is that they were descending downward, and the hull could have been compromised by a collision with the sea bottom. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there
yes.
In that scenario, Mark, is there anything underneath on the surface of the sub that would look? That I know that sounds like a silly question. That would soften the collision with the bottom. Anything, or is it carbon fiber and metal on rock?
There's a pretty silty bottom down there. If you look at the pictures of the Titanic, how far the bow dug itself into the bottom. But there is an incredible amount of debris, and there are a number of rock fields as well. So they might have got lucky, and they might have. The issue, I guess, that I have with it imploding sometime after its impact with the seabed is that there would have been a report of a sound event, which is code for a big bang. And they've been dropping sonobuoys. I mean, ever since they got out there, that the airplanes who were out there within hours of being called have been dropping sonobuoys in the vicinity. I think if it had imploded sometime after impact with the seabed, that sound event would have been recorded by one of those sonobuoys. So while it's possible, I don't think it's probable.
Understood. If you're just joining us, welcome to WFLA Now. Mark Martin, retired U.S. Navy submariner. We are reacting to this news from the U.S. Coast Guard. We were anticipating an announcement of a press conference as early as 1 o'clock because that's what we have had in previous days. Instead, we get a tweet that changes the trajectory of this operation because of a debris field. And Mark and I are in agreement. This tweet is likely not put out lightly. It is put out because a discovery of note has been made, and the discovery is that of a debris field near the wreckage of the Titanic. And so we're processing all of this, but by no means, while we are evaluating certain scenarios, while we are breaking down certain hypotheticals, while we're talking about what is possible and what is not possible, and as we use Mark here as a resource and we evaluate this, by no means is this a definitive answer as to what has transpired with the 5 people on board. While this news, of course, is not encouraging, it does not necessarily mean the tweet does not read 5 people have been found deceased. We have to take this tweet. We have to be responsible. We have to take this tweet for what it is. They have found a debris field. Is there?
And let me try and clarify something here for you, JB.
Sure.
debris field conjures up, in the layman's terms, an area of scattered debris, right?
And again, there's debris. It's the RMS Titanic. There's going to be debris all over the place.
There's going to be debris, but a debris field of new debris, which is what this implies.
It implies, but it doesn't say it. So, right. Again, being responsible.
It implies that new debris has been found. But a debris field, in technical terms, can be a piece of debris or several dozen pieces of debris.
If it was, but Mark, that I'm grateful you bring that up, because if it was a single piece of a hull of a marine vessel, wouldn't they in the tweet put a piece of debris has been discovered? A single piece of debris and calling it a debris field is kind of
it probably would be, but because everybody on the planet with a television is watching this at the moment, they have to couch what they say very delicately, because there's already enough wild speculation going on that every word in their reports have to be very clearly and consciously put in the order that they're put in. Every adjective, every noun, every verb. I can guarantee you at least a dozen people looked at this tweet before somebody hit the send button. They've got to be very careful about what they say, because, again, the level of wild speculation, as we've discussed a couple of times, it is crazy. They've got to be very careful about what they say. So the way I interpret this is there is more than one piece, but there may only be one piece. So it's just, again, it's too hard to speculate, because here in an hour and a half, 2.5 hours, everything that I've said about what this might be may be proved wrong. Maybe in 20 minutes we get a new headline that says, "Oh, we found a thruster, but now we found the hull and it's intact." It's 4,000 meters underwater. We just don't know at this point, and you can make educated guesses. And I don't mind making educated guesses. I just want to stay away from
speculating,
from wild speculation, and, as we discussed before, criticism. So it is. To me, it's a good sign, one way or the other, because it's bringing us closer, if it is in fact debris from the Titan, it brings us closer to closure of the event, one way or the other.
We are closer to answers.
Yeah. We now have a more specific place to look. I was watching Don Walsh on AV earlier, while Professor Chris was on, and and his comment about the ROV is not a great search tool because it's slow. That's why we use side scan sonar. That's why we use multi-beam echo sounding to use to large swaths, and then once you pinpoint something, then you send the ROV down, because the ROV search is very slow. Using sonar and using, lights and cameras, but it's a very slow process. So they found something. Now they can hone in on an even smaller search area, which should advance the time frame of finding additional debris.
Allow me to first just apologize for interrupting Mark and during some of the answers that he was providing. It's just very important that we document this as responsibly as possible. So I did a couple moments there, jumped in just to clarify his comments. It's just so that we are all on the same page, folks. So Mark Martin joining us here, retired U.S. Navy submariner. Mark, as far as what do you make of the fact that the actual vessel itself, the Horizon Arctic, it arrived this morning. And, you know, we were talking with Chris, with Dr. Roman earlier, about how the surface the search area at the surface might be 2 times the size of Connecticut, but underwater it certainly isn't. It is much more confined. So the fact that the Horizon Arctic got there this morning and within approximately 12 or so hours made this discovery tells you what?
Having been on that vessel some years ago.
You've been on the Horizon Arctic.
Yeah. I did one trip on her several years ago. Good ship, good crew at the time, and I can only assume that that's still true. They had the right assets. You know, they've got the ROVs that are capable of doing this. If I remember correctly, they have a crane of sufficient strength to be able to recover. Yes, if we'd have had assets there earlier, would we have found it earlier? I guess the conclusion can be made that, she got there this morning and it's now 12:30. It was around noon, I guess, that they found the debris field. So sometime, less than 12 hours of being on station, she found debris. So if it is intact, is there going to be some finger pointing? Absolutely. But as we said earlier, if it imploded, it doesn't matter. If it imploded on the way down, or if it imploded when it hit the bottom, then it doesn't matter whether it took 12 hours or 12 days to find it. The end result would have been the same. So
would the short amount of time, relatively, again, within roughly 12 hours, does that tell you that the debris field isn't far away from the point of descent?
I would expect so, because the ROV search area would have been quite small. 3x3, maybe 5x5 nautical miles at the biggest. So relatively small search area. They knew where the vessel submerged. They know where the Titanic is. They're going to do the geometry. They're going to, figure out where to look. And they got in there and looked and lo and behold, there's debris within the search area. So they're looking in the right place. What the condition of the Titan is, we have no idea. Again, there's several scenarios, as we've discussed. Maybe some external components detach themselves for whatever reason from the hull on the way down, and that's why they were trying to release ballast, and that's why they lost comms. And they did a free fall into the bottom. Or maybe they just went all the way down, and maybe this piece broke off when they hit the bottom. Maybe the hull is intact. And
again, you're just outlining potential scenarios.
Yeah, this isn't speculation. This is just possible scenarios that could happen. I'm not saying one of these did or did not happen, but that's another possible scenario, is that the vehicle was intact when it hit the bottom, and the force of that impact broke this piece or pieces off of the hull. And so the hull should be pretty close to where this, the hull or the remnants of the hull should be pretty close to where the debris that they have identified or that they, that they've seen. They haven't identified what it is yet, but
as you look down to your phone here for a second, and apologies in advance, folks, but I need to do this. This is important. Can I please get an emoji check on our audio signal for our YouTube and Facebook audience? We had to reset, unfortunately, about 10-15 minutes ago. Is our audio working on multiple platforms? We just want to do a platform by platform check. Please give us a thumbs up emoji if you can hear us okay. If the audio problems have been eliminated, a thumbs down, please. If the problems have persisted, that is the best way for us to check if our signal is being distorted as a result of either encoding problems or just an increased volume in traffic online. So
apparently it's working in Scotland. TikTok is working in Scotland.
All right, everybody. So we were listening to the latest on the Titan search. There's going to be a press cert at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Time, and we'll have that here for you. So follow Staying Connected and SoCal Television for the latest on the Titan search. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.
the Horizon Arctic has found